I was on that hill there. No. But I remember being shocked by the violence. When I filmed this 25 years ago, I didn't know that it was going to be so important. It's satisfying to have filmed something that helped create this place. Hi. I'm Vaughan. Nice to meet you. I think it's important. I'm one of the few witnesses to this. So I think while I'm still alive, I think it's important to come back, support the family and say hello to them. And they're always pretty happy to see me, so it's good. 25 years ago, I didn't know that it was going to be so important. When I came back after the Serbs had left to have a look, the bodies had been taken. It was a few days after. I came back to see what had happened and went through the rubble just to sort of have a look at it, digest it, and understand. And I saw a coffee grinder, and it was broken. I think a bullet had hit, you know, the arm that turns it, and it was full of coffee. And I thought, okay, I shall take the memento. So at home, I have, it doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the 𝐫𝐤𝐥𝐤 family, but they know I have it, and they say I can keep it for the moment. And so I have Adam 𝐫𝐤𝐥𝐤𝐸's coffee grinder and broken by a bullet. I had been filming the Pope's visit in Cuba and called a taxi to get back from the airport. I had a Bosnian wife from Sarajevo. And in the taxi, I called my wife, say, hey, I'm back. And she was happy that I was back, which was a good thing. The taxi driver, I was speaking very bad Bosnian. I'm not a very good linguist, but I was speaking very bad Bosnian. And the taxi driver heard this and said, you know, why are you speaking this language? And I said, oh, I'm a journalist and my wife's Bosnian. And we got talking, and his name is 𝐫𝐿. Yeah. He was based in London, and he was quite active in raising money for the cause. So he knew what was going on pretty well. And he said, look, it's getting very interesting there if you're a journalist. And I said, yeah, but, you know, can you help me with accreditations? He put me in touch with some people based in Switzerland, I think Geneva. And I went out to see them and spoke to them and said, look, I want access to the, you know, this new emerging liberation army, the Kosovo Liberation Army that you call 𝐫𝐤𝐥𝐤𝐸. And I remember driving, and we heard some fighting, we saw a lot of smoke, and I think we probably approached from about over there. It's hard to remember, it's 25 years ago exactly. And on the first day, we got some quite good pictures of Serbian vehicles, Serbian soldiers in blue camouflage, that some of them wear, sort of militia, police soldiers. And we went through empty villages, completely deserted villages. A couple of the houses had been burnt there. And then I finally got to the point where I could see where everything was happening. There was still gunfire going on. And you could see there was houses burning, and this house was burning. And a lot of these houses have been rebuilt, but they weren't in good shape and they were being burnt. I had a problem because the sun was in my eyes, it was about there, and I was worried that the reflection of my lens could detect that someone was there. As we started to go, we were shot at in 2 bursts. 30 rounds. So it was 2 bursts of an 𝐫𝐭⁴ Kalashnikov rifle. They have 30 rounds, so it was about half each. And in the first burst, I felt something hit me here, hard on the stomach. I thought, oh shit, I've been hit. But I didn't really feel pain, and so I knew I wouldn't be able to speak to my wife, and she would see it on the news. I didn't want her to be frightened. And so I rang her, or I thought I could, and I noticed that my telephone had a bullet in it. So I wasn't going to ring anybody, it was smashed. That's when I realized and understood that my telephone had been hit. And also, I had some Deutschmarks. You have to have some cash, obviously, if you're a journalist, you have to maybe buy something. And I had a wad of Deutschmarks, and they had a bullet hole straight through them. and I had some Marlboro cigarettes. I'm not really a smoker, but I'd already realized in this country that cigarettes are like a currency. And that I remember you go into the Oda and people would give you cigarettes, and I always felt I had to smoke them. Terrible for my health. So I had some to give to people. We went back to the Grand Hotel and we edited it, put it into a piece, and it was my job to then take the tape. We used to use tapes then. I had to get that material to London quickly, and the only way we could do it was through the Serbian television service. And then you could send it by satellite. Now you guys, you cameramen, you can put it on a little chip and you send it on the internet. Well, we didn't have that. What we had was we had to go to the Serbs, and so you could only get it out through the Serbs and they could see it. But they couldn't see it beforehand. And this was normal in television then. You know, all the television companies in the world had agreements where you could go in and you could put tapes in and then they would send it back and then they charge you. I remember we gave it to the Serbian lady who was managing what was called the feed station, and she put the tape in and pressed play, and we could see it was being sent, and it goes via Belgrade. So it went Pristina, Belgrade, Belgrade, London. But it's live, so if it's left Pristina, it's in London. You know, it's like a half a second. And so she was watching this. And at first it just was nothing, and then her eyes were opened, and then I realized she didn't know whether to stop it or something like that. But she didn't. The bodies of the 𝐫𝐤𝐥𝐤𝐸 family were taken to 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐤𝐸 on the edge somewhere, and they were all laid out, and the journalists all came to see them. And I remember then, and of course I didn't understand that the 𝐫𝐤𝐸𝐸 family were a big family in the region, because I was still learning about this country. I didn't know much about it then. But I remember being shocked by the violence, because this was not soldiers. Yes, of course, the men in the family, they were soldiers, they were guerrillas, they were fighters, and you know, it's traditional when you're having a battle that you target the men, and the war should try to contain to that, and that is normal in international law. But in this instance, and I hadn't known what had happened fully, because we didn't know everything. We just had these pictures of this attack. And then we saw that there were these women and children, well, their bodies were there, who'd been killed. And we heard that there had been, some of the family had survived or not been there, but we were still trying to find out exactly what had happened. But I remember being shocked by the number of people who'd been killed and the manner of it, how it had happened, and how the whole family had been killed. You know, if it hadn't happened, perhaps the independence wouldn't have happened. It's hard to see how it would have happened. Now, it's not the only thing that happened, because there were other massacres too, and there were all sorts of things that made it happen. But this started it. This did something very important. And I don't believe it could have done this without the pictures. I think the role of the international journalists was perhaps larger than many Albanians understand. And I'm not saying necessarily that international journalists need to be thanked. They're doing their job. But they did do their job. And the job was a good job. And they told the truth, and the truth got out. But what was really interesting, I think, with this video was it triggered the diaspora to understand that the fight was on. So the diaspora said, this is terrible, the 𝐫𝐤𝐸𝐸 family have all been killed, and so it started gathering momentum, gathering fundraising, gathering all sorts of things. So more weapons could be bought, more people could volunteer, and also you could almost feel the villages and the towns in Kosovo rise, and you'd go into them and you'd see guerrillas there. There were young people. The ones that I worked with a lot was Jeta Jara, for example, Fisnika Braci, Visa Krezu, but there are many, many more. And I haven't named them all, but they all deserve to be named and remembered. These were young people who, and they were young, they were smart, they spoke English very well. If someone was to tell me that all these houses are new, I'd believe them. Because there's so many houses are burnt in Kosovo. So many. You don't find somebody in this country who doesn't know somebody or have a family member who was killed, or you know, doesn't have memories of living under plastic, wet, cold. Morning. I think the footage has certainly enabled Albanian independence, yes. I think it's not to say that the diaspora wouldn't have come later, but perhaps there would have been more massacres. Until journalists came, I do believe, I'm 100% sure, that to get NATO involved, you need to inform the West. They need to see images, pictures, video is how you communicate in the modern age, or certainly how you did then. Maybe it's social media now. But you needed images so people could see it. These pictures were seen by everybody, Albanian abroad, you can imagine. It was very big news. And also they were seen by diplomats, they were seen by politicians. And also a journalist's job isn't to change history. A journalist's job is to give other people the information so that they change history. We've only got one brain each. I came here, I didn't know this country. I know it a lot better now. I didn't know who was right and wrong when I first saw it. It's news, I've been here a week. What I am pleased with is that there was action. Of course it makes me feel good that pictures that I took had an impact. And if they saved lives, if they did good, if they did something good, but it's not even for me to decide that, because as a journalist, as my profession, an activist's job is to change the world. Mine is to tell the truth of the world, so many brains can decide what is the best outcome. You have to be humble to be a good journalist. Otherwise, you're something else, you're a propagandist. I didn't come here wanting to take a side, but I did care very much about human happiness and people's lives. And I do believe that international journalists, quite a lot because they took images of 3 massacres, Prekaz being the first, 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐢𝐯 being the second, and 𝐫𝐿 being the third. These pictures arranged a timeline for NATO to come in. Without them, NATO may not have come in. Without one of them, NATO may not have come in. We don't know that. I remember that building there was the one that the armoured vehicles were smashing into. That building was on fire, that building was on fire. There were more fires somewhere to the right. There was a fire over there. So all the buildings that haven't been repaired were clearly on fire, and I saw those. But I think lots of these other buildings were also destroyed, and some of them may be new. I mean, the museum's new, I wasn't there. You know, you asked me, how does it feel? Yeah, I'm pleased. I am proud of filming this. Yes, I am proud of filming this. I'm proud that something happened, something that saved lives came out of it. And I'm very pleased that Kosovo Albanians today, they have a future they didn't have then.